Thank you so much for being here tonight. We are going to start the quote-unquote content portion of the evening. I'm Kate McAndrew. I'm an associate at Bolt, and we invest in early-stage hardware companies. And I also have the great fortune of somehow starting this amazing group, which is really a part of kind of everyone showing up. So thank you for being here. I want to throw it to Madeline real quick, who did a ton of work to put this together, and just give her a moment to kind of talk about Fictiv and what she's doing building community here, because she's badass.
So Fictiv is a hardware development platform. We work with engineers and designers, and what we're really all about is helping people bring physical products to life. So everything we do is helping you take those products that you guys are working on and bring them into the world. So we do that in a couple different ways. Namely, we have a tool that allows you to turn around 3D printed parts in 24 hours using our online platform. We do a whole host of content, also doing spotlights with great startups in the space and great hardware companies. We do very technical content on everything from very high level to granular, how to design snap fits and light pipes and material considerations. And then one of the other notable ones some of you guys may have seen is we do teardowns. So once a week, we, in the space, we find a cool hardware product and we take it down to its little bitty pieces and see what works, what doesn't, and why people made the choices they did. So we've done some really cool ones, like we've torn down the entire history of Nintendo controllers. That was lots of fun. We just did one of the Roomba. We've done Dyson, vacuums, you name it. And then we also do events. So we do events in space. We partner with great organizations like Women in Hardware. We're really just finding ways to engage with the community and help get all of the information of how to build physical products, which is hard, and everyone's nodding. It's a hard process, right? And get that out into the world and democratize that knowledge. So if any of those things are interesting to you, you can talk to me, you can talk to, we've got Fictiv, we have Fictors all around the place. You want to raise your hands or wave. It's all great people to talk to after the event. Happy to answer any questions there. And from that, I will hand it back to the panelists.
Hi, I'm Sylvia. I work here at Fictiv. Lots of swag. I'm a senior manufacturing engineer here, and that means I do manufacturing process R&D. So I'm not inventing any new manufacturing processes, but making it more accessible and easier for everyone to use. For example, we just launched a CNC beta on platform. This allows you to get CNC parts quoted online. You see a show cost instantly, and you get an actual quote within an hour of requesting it. And you can get a part turned around in 3 days.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Hi everyone, I'm Gabrielle from Moxxly. I'm co-founder and designer at Moxxly. So Moxxly is designing smart products for modern women, and we're starting with the world's first smart and hands-free breast pump. The project for me started, Moxxly started for me as a master's thesis project at Stanford. I wanted to design products for women because there's lots of men who are engineering and selling and marketing products to women, and they don't always align. So we started out wanting to design products for women, not knowing what that meant. And we started interviewing lots of women, and I met a woman named Laura at Apple. And I wanted to know what it was like for her to be in a male-dominated space, and she just wanted to tell me all about her breast pump. So finally I shut up and listened to Laura, and we've been running hard and fast ever since.
Hi, I'm Eva. I work for D.Light. We make solar power products for the developing world. So specifically for Africa and Kenya, our two biggest markets. India and Kenya. So I've been there for about 2 years now. I'm design director, so I lead new product design and pretty much everything from initial concept development and user testing all the way through to handing it off to our incredible team in China.
We've heard a lot about design thinking, we've heard a lot about rapid prototyping, and now we're hearing things like lean hardware development. I'd love to hear kind of from a maybe philosophical standpoint, when you think about prototyping, from a philosophical standpoint, like how do you think about your approach?
For me, the most important thing is to just build prototypes as often as possible. So it's a little difficult working in a space where we're very cost constrained, and specifically within our company, every dollar we spend is a dollar that's not going to an end consumer. So it gets a little stressful sometimes when you're like ordering a $1,000 prototype that's just going to help you this week and not next week. But I'll set myself really often deadlines just to make it so easy that I can't not prototype something all the time.
I would say for us at Moxxly, Shanti Annalidis and I head up the product development team. I forgot to mention earlier, we've been through a production run in China, but we're pre-launch. So for us, because we're pre-launch, it's always the most for the least. Like, how can we get the answer that we need the quickest, the fastest, the cheapest? And then the tricky side to that is like moving as fast as you can, but still being able to answer the question. Because sometimes if you prototype something, you send it out, you get back the wrong material, and then you're set back that week when you would have gone faster if you'd slow down and really think through the prototype what is actually the question that you need to answer.
So my philosophy about prototyping is to break it down to the smallest component level that you can early in the stage. So for example, if you design a product with few mechanisms, buttons, lights, do those things separately, right? So don't build big prototypes, build small prototypes of the component that you're trying to validate.
So I heard a great story about the first Moxxly prototype that I believe you made in your kitchen. So I would love to hear maybe that story, or just stories of kind of those early prototypes and what it takes to kind of take that first step.
Yeah, Kara Delzer, our CEO, likes to imagine that I was concocting silicone parts and pulling them out of the oven. I'm like, I'm not sure how she like this easy bake oven prototype of silicone. I'm like, it's room temperature, but that's fine. But yeah, at the beginning we had lots and lots of questions that we need to answer. Our product is an FDA-regulated device, and it's the first of its kind. So like women currently who are using breast pumps, all of them hate it. They all say it makes them feel like a cow. So we are excited to be able to deliver a product that they're wanting and they're like really desperately wanting. But the part that's new is the smart component. So our sensors track milk volume and data, and that was something that we didn't know if they even wanted that, right? Because it doesn't exist right now. So a lot of the early prototypes had to do with wanting smart or not, and then building before we had access to any spaces. We started out in Highway 1, the hardware accelerator, but before we had access to their great shop, before we had any money in from any angels, we were doing, I was casting silicone parts with clay molds because it was what we had access to. And so being able to take that and put it in the hands of users to get feedback was something that got us to the next step, the next step, the next step.
This is the first product that I worked on at D.Light, and we released it, over the summer. It's the first $5 solar lantern in the world.
Can I pass it around?
Yeah, sure. I wish I could go grab the real one. Even better to pass around. Basically half the price of existing solar lanterns, and our main goal here is affordability. So it's a really, really exciting product to release, but also a ton of pressure while we were first working on it because. At the time, we had a lot of really experienced people in the company who were very set in their ways of what our products needed to be in order to be satisfactory to the customers. So one of the very first prototypes that we brought out was we were looking at what the bare minimum of a solar light could be. So this is just basically it's got a solar panel on the back and one plastic part. And it was for 11 cents, what kind of a housing can we get? And it looked ridiculous. No industrial designer would ever let someone see this. But we put it in users' hands, and they were like, "This is amazing! It's a light. It does what it needs to do." And I think it really just opened us up and let us be more creative because we realized that a lot of the barriers in our heads were just totally manufactured by the 7-year history of our company at that time.
So starting with Sylvia, do you guys have any sort of recollections of surprises or discoveries where you were asking one question but you got kind of a surprising answer?
I think that happens with every single product I've worked on. A lot of the times the things I design, say if I was designing, if I was doing some ID design, and people would tell me, it's like, oh, I didn't think that button changed volume. I thought it was a power on, power off button. I get those kind of like answers all the time. Like, oh, so that, the mental model, right, of the form evokes doesn't make any sense. So I go back and change it. So I think it's just a matter of getting your prototype into people's hands and see how they respond to it. And you'll, a lot of the times your designs are not going to make sense. So these prototypes help tell you that.
Yeah, I think that's certainly true for us as well. We try to get like really ugly stuff people like as soon as possible. It's interesting to see like their imagination work, and like they can see beyond the ugly stuff and imagine what will be good, and then you can catch those things like, no, it's not an on-off switch, or that does something else. I have an answer to that, but it's kind of boob specific. Is that okay?
Boobs are great. Love boobs.
Okay, so we have lots of user focus groups, and one was called Focus on the Flange. So in breast pumps, the flange is like the part that goes on the breast and it seals when it's under vacuum. So we know that there's a sizing issue with flange. There's like 19 different sizes, and there's a huge mystery around like what size should I wear, because there's no correlation. Like you can't just say, I'm a 32D, so I'm this sort of flange size, right? There's no translation. So we tried, like our question was around like what actually fits with women. And the big surprise for us when we did, we actually made what we call nipple rulers, which were just laser cut circles of lots of different diameters, and had women like hold them up to their nipples to try to determine.
That's awesome.
if there's any sort of correlation between cup size and nipple size.
Is there?
No, that's the big surprise.
That's so frustrating.
Yes. For us and them alike,
Yeah. Any surprises on the D.Light side?
Yeah, so actually this is kind of, Sylvia was making me think of this. I am always surprised when we bring stuff out to the field by how users read what they're seeing on a product. So not just like what they think a button does, but like, the fact that they, and a lot of times it has to do with like the translation. They'll read like the lens as glass that is fragile and needs to be protected, or like the solar panel, like sometimes they won't even recognize what the solar panel is. And it just makes you realize, especially for someone who's comes from such a different background, how important the like material analogies and other analogies are in terms of how they understand a product. But I think even more surprising to me was having that with our suppliers as well, like putting products into the hands, or prototypes into the hands of our CMs, and having them be like, oh, this like silicone piece won't work, and I'm sitting there being like, oh, that's not silicone, but maybe that's a really good idea. And I think one of the biggest values of a prototype is having it be rough enough that people can misunderstand it or reinterpret it, and they don't like see something and say like, oh, it's done, it's too late to give feedback. And I just always love the weird misunderstandings that happen, because they're usually pretty inspiring.
So one of the things that I love to talk about, particularly given where we're sitting, is so we've talked kind of about the prototyping, getting into users' hands, getting feedback, but I'd love to talk specifically about like tools that you find indispensable, or like things that you consistently leverage in order to make these prototypes, whether it's, people talk a lot about Arduino and Raspberry Pi, but like what are kind of the core tools that you engage when you're making prototypes?
So since I do a lot of work in India and in Kenya to test our products, I actually have like a prototyping Go box that I take with me. So it's like, it basically is like all of the things that you could need to build a really janky prototype of a solar lantern. So usually it's actually just filled with like tons and tons of random clear plastic things. So I'm like totally the one that's like fishing old drinking cups out of the garbage and stuff, because I'm like, oh, this is the perfect shape that I might need later. And I actually find that a lot of times, sort of hacking together prototypes from other products is more believable than trying to build something from scratch. And so I think some of the most valuable prototypes that I've made have been like going to some like little corner store in India and like going through all their Tupperware products and figuring out which one is the right shape, rather than like trying to make a clear product from scratch in the middle of the field.
Oh, I missed doing that with you.
Yeah.
Did you have any more? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, so a few things I find indispensable. Number one, hot glue. Right, so this is to your point, it's probably better to build a prototype out of somebody else's parts because they pay for it too.
Yeah, that's great.
Another thing I find indispensable, other people's products, right? So I never try to reinvent the wheel. I tear down similar products or products that have a component that's similar to what I'm trying to build, and then see how they're doing. Right? See if it's if it's a good design or if there's something that can be improved. And that really shortens my design time because I'm not really doing anything. I'm just like collecting ideas and picking out the one I like. What else? I mean, I work for a 3D printing company, but I find laser cutters, like 2D prototyping, indispensable. It's just so fast, and you don't even have to be technical to design something on a 2D printer, so you can outsource it. Give it to somebody else to do.
Awesome. So I think one of the things that's interesting about both the products you're working on is you have like pretty significant environmental considerations. Like you've got something that's going to be under, going to go through FDA. It's attaching to the body. You're dealing with like breast milk. You've got fluid happening. You've got something else you're putting into another culture. You're leaving out in the field in harsh environments potentially. Can you talk a little bit about kind of environmental considerations when, maybe you're at that phase where you're going to leave someone with a prototype for a couple of weeks, like how you kind of think about those environmental considerations?
Yeah, sure. It is true, we do a lot of benchtop testing in-house, and we try to simulate breast milk as much as we can. It's totally different and acts totally different on human bodies, and then that is totally different than you have a screaming child, and then in the field, especially for moms, are the roughest thing. And if you're trying to test the limits of your prototype, just give it to a new mom, and she will find a way to break it in a really good way. But I guess it's kind of like a spectrum of how we think about it. So because we're FDA approved, we need an institutional review board to review our protocols in order to test it with women before it achieves actual FDA approval. So we went through a lot of work and preparation in order to fully test with women in the field for 1 week long. So we thought quite a bit about all of the environments that she would be in, would be using it in, and then ways that we can support her. But short of that, then there's just getting the app in front of her and testing the app with her. It's just always best to try to simulate real life environments as quickly as you can, because lab to life is there's a huge gap, and you can make a lot of mistakes and assumptions based on that gap. Cost you a lot later on.
Yeah, we've definitely seen the same. So I think D.Light is pretty lucky in that the products we're making are relatively simple and low voltage, so you don't really have to worry about a lot of the regulations and safety issues. But that means that we can handle a lot of those issues much earlier. And I think actually we often catch environmental problems that wouldn't be caught in our lab testing, even though we're doing standard IP testing and drop testing and packaging. There will be simple things like the fact that someone pushes a button with their nail and not with the automated button pusher that we're using to test things. And so we'll when we bring these prototypes out after 2 weeks, you can see that it's just totally destroyed. And it's actually a really cool opportunity to test early, and to then sort of calibrate our lab testing to be more accurate. And for a while, we actually just did have someone in our factory, literally a person pressing a button 10,000 times. Oh my God.
Do you guys have any recommendations for key vendors, either locally or not locally, for doing maybe small volumes? Obviously, Fictiv can be a great vendor, but also yay Fictiv. But also other folks that you guys have leaned on for doing kind of small runs of stuff.
So I have a bunch of contacts in China that I'm happy to set anyone up with. I don't know if the specific details are helpful right now, but for metal bending and a lot of complex stuff that you usually can't find here, and then also for beautiful CNC prototypes, we've worked a lot with China. Fictiv is obviously an invaluable resource, and then I feel like along the way I've also met a couple of kind of just fun, excited guys with machine shops in Redwood City and stuff. Like, actually, Gabs and I were working on a project before where we got in a lot of trouble with some metal bending and like ended up finding some random guy with a shop, and those people are often, I don't know, I find them to be just incredibly, like, they give you a totally different perspective because you'll be working with someone who's like spent their entire life in their little shop fixing people's problems. So.
Yeah, so Fictiv, we're big fans of Fictiv. Also big fans of Fine Line and Fathom. So actually, I guess all starting with an F. Also, Strong D. We've never actually used Strong D, but we hear nothing but good things for like super, super fast parts back from Korea.
Anything to add?
Sure. Fictiv, right? We do more than just 3D printing. We do CNC. For our best customers, we have access to some undisclosed manufacturing processes. So I'll talk to you about that.
Thanks everyone for coming. You guys are women in hardware. We are women in hardware. That's the thing. That's the whole thing. There's more food, more booze. Stick around, chat, and it was just a pleasure to be with you all tonight.